The protests in Baltimore are continuing. In fact, just this past Monday, over 200 protesters were arrested as a result of some violence that took place. Now, there are two different groups of people that are taking part in these protests. There are the credible, legitimate protesters who know what they're there for, and then there are those who are just agitators, those who are rioting, looting. They're using this opportunity to steal from stores, and unfortunately all our press coverage has been on that as opposed to the real issues in Baltimore. Now, there are other issues in Baltimore that need to be discussed, and that has to do with the treatment of journalists. Recently, there was a journalist with the Baltimore City Paper, a photographer to be specific, by the name of J.M. Giordano. And apparently, while he was doing his job, the police decided it would be a great idea to attack him. It was all caught on tape. Take a look.
He's a photographer! He's press! Photographer! He's a photographer!
Now, that video was captured by a City Paper managing editor by the name of Bernard Woods, and you can see that they're yelling, he's a photographer, he's a journalist, like, let him go, you know, and apparently at some point they finally just kind of gave up and they did let him go. But when that was posted online, it had the caption, "Me being beat on by several Baltimore police," and then he also used the hashtags Freddie Gray, hashtag Baltimore. So you see things like that, and it makes you realize that not only are the police misguided in some of their actions, there are real journalists out there that really put their lives on the line to give you the information that you get. There are journalists out there that give me the information that I need to do the shows that I do. And I have so much respect for them because not only do they put their lives on the line, in a lot of cases they don't make much money and they don't get much recognition. So all my respect goes to the Baltimore City Paper and the fact that they're doing great original reporting on this. I want to know what you guys think, though. Robbie, make your point.
I think it's a special kind of crime to hurt a journalist or put a journalist in harm's way. But, you know, and not to defend the police officers at all here, but because, like, what threat could a photographer really be posing? But I'm always curious how these things start. You know, like, how did that happen, you know? And my guess is that it was probably one bad officer to begin with, you know, whose ego was bruised, didn't want to be photographed maybe, and then the other officers were just trying to back their buddy up, basically. And I think that's how this sort of thing happens, especially in that chaotic environment. It gets overwhelming, and so again, I think it goes back to training, you know, and better training so they can handle those chaotic environments and not do something like be a journalist.
Yeah. You know, it doesn't surprise me when those who are being questioned because of their part in injustices have reactions like that, because a journalist is a person who documents what happens in the world, and sometimes they document things that people aren't very happy about. So it wouldn't be far-fetched for a police officer to retaliate if they feel that they have a guilty conscience in this whole situation. That's my guess. What do you think, Wendy?
Girl, like, don't get me started, because this has been a thing that I've been actually covering for a while now over at the work that I'm doing now, Reportedly. But I think what we're seeing is that filming the police has become not something that is protected any longer. In fact, Texas wanted to pass a law that would make it against the law for a civilian to film the police. And that includes photographers as well, as long as they're not in obstruction of the work that's being done. California is passing a bill that would make it actually clarify that it would be okay to film and photograph the police. So there's all this ambiguity about what's possible. And you know, what's interesting also in the Baltimore riots is that April 29th is the 23rd anniversary of the LA uprising with Rodney King. And so we're seeing like this symmetry in like what's happening in Baltimore and what happened many years ago in Los Angeles and what's really happening across the country. So the idea that journalists like are getting beat up, that is insane, and it's not what America stands for. And the fact that these police officers feel like they can get away with it, and that only through filming it do we actually see the truth, I think that's a big problem that we have to face.
I totally agree with you. Look, freedom of the press is a constitutionally protected right. So when we have debates about what's protected under the Constitution, it's always about the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. You know what's also incredibly important? the right for press to go out there and hold politicians and those in authority accountable for their actions. So again, a tremendous amount of credit to the journalists out there that are putting themselves in danger to give us the news. Now here's a personal question for the story. Have you ever been accused of something that you didn't actually do? Robby.
Okay, in first grade, in first grade, I was accused by my teacher of cheating on a test. We had these like ridiculous folders too back then, and so like I just kind of like looked up because I couldn't sit still well as a child, and so I was kind of like looking at the clock and everything, and then I'd go back to it and all like that. And my teacher came up to me and said, "You're cheating." You know, just like definitively, and I started crying. And I still remember that incident. Like that is like still, for some reason, it stuck with me as this like horrible, like, oh my God, you know. I couldn't stand it as a kid. I was like, I didn't do it. Ah, why don't you believe me? You know.
Wow.
Yeah. First grade was hard.
Wendy, what about you?
First grade is always hard. You know, I'll keep it on the journalism tip. I was accused by a very conservative listener of my show that I didn't give a very conservative member of Congress equal opportunity, I guess.
Yes.
But what I had done was aired a piece that he actually said on the floor, in which he was being a complete racist.
Yeah.
And I called him a racist, and so he called like the FCC on me. He called my boss. He went all out. And we had to listen to the tape again, and it was like I cannot be held responsible for the words that come out of this member of Congress's mouth.
I bet you the person who contacted the FCC was the member of Congress that you reported on. I wouldn't be surprised. It's amazing how politicians feel the need to say hideous things on tape, and then later on when you
call them out,
they're like, what? I didn't say that. It's on tape.
How dare you? Yeah.
I had a similar situation. This is from years ago. Yeah. So we did a story about a KFC commercial that aired in Australia, and it was put online, and since it was put online, the nature of the commercial was called into question because it featured black soccer fans in an audience eating fried chicken, and so we had a discussion about whether or not it should be considered racist. Now, a lot of people in Australia didn't like our coverage of that, and I understand that. The Inquisitor, which is a publication that I really call foul on, decided to cover that story by taking a portion of the video where I'm paraphrasing someone else or I'm quoting someone else saying something racist, and then they quoted it as me saying it seriously.
Wow.
And even though I told them, you guys took that out of context, even though all the comments in that article tried to clarify for them that I was paraphrasing someone else, they haven't taken that article down. So they're accusing me of being racist when they had the full video and they were able to see it. I think that that's beyond sensationalistic, beyond character assassination, and the Inquisitor, you're a bullshit publication unless you take that shit down. Calling you out on that 100%. Anyway, tell us what you guys think. Have you ever been accused of something that you didn't actually do? Comment in the section below and we'll see you soon.